Well, thank you for joining us today on stage. We really appreciate it. So we're going to have a conversation just really delving into data conversion and kind of how that looks for each of you. So to kick us off, all three of you are from very different worlds. So we've got luxury fashion, beauty, financial services. Before we dive in, what does digital experience actually mean within your respective context? So Paolo, we'll kick off with you.
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah.
I mean, in my context, digital experience covers everything a user goes through when they interact with a brand across all digital channels, website, email, app, customer service, social media, and so on. And it's not just about how they look, but it's also about how they feel.
Mm-hmm.
And then speaking about our website specifically, digital experience to us means bringing online what makes our brand so special in the, I would call it the brand experience epicenter, the store.
Yeah.
But of course, if you think about it, you cannot replicate the same experience for so many reasons. They are completely different touch points. For example, on our website, not yet. Maybe we don't have a well-trained and professional sales assistant. So it's not try to replicate the experience, but it's try to find the digital equivalent of the feeling that the store can offer.
Yeah. Amazing. Sara, how about yourself?
Yeah, I think we've got similarities in both being luxury, and I think for us the digital experience is really trying to make it customer centric, so easy to use and navigate, all that good stuff that I think a lot of us know, while still being commercially effective, like hitting those business goals that we're committing to. But with luxury, that added layer of trying to not compromise on the brand positioning. So still trying to be immersive, just like you spoke about. Aspirational, it almost justifies that higher price point. And true to the brand story. So I think for us, in our context, it would be really around finding that sweet spot amongst all of that.
Yeah, so from a banking point of view, it's interesting because we've got two sides. We've got the commercial, the lending side, and we're kind of like in the position where we consider everybody for lending, so people with quite complex financial situations. And for us, a premier experience is like delivering digital tools to help our kind of partners do that. On the other side, we've got like the savings side of it. And in kind of like a world of institutification, our kind of premier experience is understanding what the customer needs and giving it a really simple way of doing it without kind of making the journeys too complicated.
Amazing. That's really interesting, kind of a lot of personalization, understanding exactly what your customer needs and going through there. Focusing on beauty and luxury, we know that this is kind of a really big area where the brand is really keen, really key, and aesthetics have kind of traditionally trumped pure data. How do you make a case for behavioral analytics kind of in an environment where that creative intuition carries so much weight?
Yeah, I think it's very important in luxury and fashion and beauty and fragrance. That brand and that aesthetic and that visual identity is so important. But I think, and it's not just recently, it's been over the last few years, there's a much greater appetite to be data-led and not just opinion-based. And we're seeing this across brand teams as well, not just digital teams, which is great. But we still have challenges, and the team are looking at me for sure. They know that we have challenges still with that. But it's really about how the behavioral analytics and insights strengthens that brand intuition, and we can tangibly and quantifiably say to brand what really resonates with our customers rather than just guessing and leaning on opinions. So I think if you just reframe it like that, brands tend to lean in a bit more as well.
Brilliant. Anything else from kind of Versace or kind of?
No, I agree with Sara because the debate between data and creativity comes up in our office every week. Not every day, but every week. And to me, the wrong approach is when you try to win against creativity with data. It doesn't work. We are lucky because the UX, UI, the designer are sitting on my left, so we are very close. And sometimes when we ship something online, we think that a new component, a new experience is well designed, well thought out, but then after a few days we start running our analysis in Contentsquare, and of course every time we find something that is not working as well as it could. No? And in this case, we go back to the designers and we tell them, okay, team, we could improve this part, this is where the experience broke, and so on. And in this way, we are not challenging them, their whole idea. It's a way to improve together the performance, the experience, and then with this approach, the conversation changed completely, and it started to be more productive, constructive.
That's kind of working in a partnership and making it not look like data's the enemy. It's ultimately there to.
Yeah, no. At the end, it's the opposite. The data protects, let's say, not their words, their word experience.
Yeah, amazing. And I know, Sara, you use data in quite a creative way, where you work in an industry that's particularly competitive, but also where you don't necessarily have the kind of freedom to kind of use traditional kind of promotions around Black Friday. You did some really good work where you use data to then think creatively.
Yeah, I think it was a really good use case for data analytics and behavioural insights, because sadly we can't take part in the traditional sense of Black Friday with extreme discounting, as much as I would love discounted fragrance. And so we had to be a little bit slicker and smarter with how we leverage data to inform our strategy during these peak periods. So we were able to actually use Contentsquare and data analytics to look at what worked well previously, what really worked well with our customers, what they did and what they didn't like, and then we could surface that during upcoming Black Fridays or peak periods. So knowing that, you know, a specific exclusive gift with purchase works really well, so we surface that earlier in the journey, but we wouldn't know all of these things without having had the learnings from something like behavioural analytics. So yeah, and even from a space of like making sure that the site is performing the way you expect it to. As I know we've all been talking about how AI and data democratization is super important. It's true. Our e-com teams are able to jump in super quickly and look at checkout completion rate and see if there are any issues during the Black Friday period. So many use cases for this.
I think what's really good about that Black Friday example, there's a bit of, I wouldn't say laziness, but every Black Friday is a discount, it's a 10% discount. You get to Black Friday and your email inbox is just absolutely crammed full of them. And is that a luxury experience where actually I feel like giving people a little bit of something or a little bit personalised, that kind of, you can still get a luxury experience without discounting heavily.
Yeah, so true.
Yeah, definitely, and understanding what they want, but still being commercially minded. And I think also having access to that speed of kind of insight and kind of getting to something quickly to make changes, shift it, particularly when it comes to being creative. If you can't rely on strong discount messages, is super helpful.
For sure.
I guess kind of delving into what you were talking about in terms of other teams and where we were looking at kind of more creative members of the business. How do you get non-data professionals excited about data and kind of how they can use it? So kind of looking at that in a bit more detail, we know that there is a lot of data within businesses. Kind of how do you excite people about data?
I think it's super, super challenging, and I can give you plenty of examples that haven't worked. Because I think there's kind of a big bang approach where you get a new tool in, you train everyone's going to be away, but actually what I've found is you need to kind of find those people who are really data-driven within the business, kind of latch onto them and kind of help them use the tool. They start sharing their data and it kind of spreads. I think the other really important point is when people join the business, you've got when they're fresh in, that's the point to hit them with the training, because otherwise you've kind of lost them. I think another big problem is like doing these training sessions, having these big groups with these team channels or Slack channels with 60, 70 people in. People aren't nervous about doing it wrong, so I'm kind of hoping that, creating safe spaces for them where let them know there's like no wrong answers. But what I'm really excited about is the future of like this AI, because I think the future is like the end user goes in, they run a query, do a prompt, and it spits back. And you don't have to because these platforms are quite scary when you log in and you've never used it. So it's kind of what I'm hoping.
Yeah, and then to me the key is to start from real problem, not let's say. Because if you walk in a room and you tell to your colleagues, hey guys, look at this number, and in your beautiful dashboard you have a lot of metrics, charts, and KPIs, you are going to lose the audience in 30 seconds. Instead, if you tell them, oh look, here is where we are having the highest drop-off in the checkout, okay? You are answering to a question they were already asking themselves.
Yep.
And it's the same way you try to learn a new tool. If you start with a real problem that you have, it's more, let's say, easier to learn the tool, to learn something.
Yeah, that's one of the things about people like dashboards because they feel safe. But people add and add and add. You show them your dashboard, and it's like a cockpit of a plane. Yeah. And they show you it. You're like, oh, here's the answer. You're like, oh, where do I look? Yeah. So that's a good point. Yeah, you got to keep it to the question.
Agree. I think when you strip back the dashboards and the numbers and you actually make it relevant to the audience, people just are so much more receptive. And you take them on the journey as well. Like, you make it fun. I know that sounds... I do make it fun. But you invite them to ideation sessions where they can see real customer problems in data and they have to try and come up with solutions. Or you present them with, like we did earlier, 2 variations of an A/B test and get them to guess which one was the winner. Or one of my favorites, show them a clip of their real customer in like user research and see how they truly react to the experience. And then it becomes so much more real and tangible, and you bridge that data to something that's relevant to them, the real customer's response. Totally agree with what you guys say.
Yeah. It's definitely emotional, isn't it? You have to kind of really get to that pain point that's going to make someone pay attention versus just reporting, because everyone is drowning in data, aren't they, just in terms of
and I think businesses do kind of lean towards dashboards where like insight set pieces need to be like, oh, this is the problem, go away, do some research, come back and do it in like a presentation, tell the story, and really distinct. It's not because people seem to do one or the other, but
no, definitely, and storytelling is always key, I think, with any of that, because you want to get to the key points, don't you? And everyone likes a short story, so kind of get to those key points. Well, Phil, actually, I really want to also talk to you about regulation and data privacy, obviously a big part of the world that you operate in. Kind of how do you stay on the right side of compliance, or kind of while still really getting to that depth of data, so kind of towing the line there when it comes to those two? Yeah,
this is a really, really interesting topic. So I think, like, ethically, really want to protect people's privacy. And since GDPR came in, it's got kind of a legal basis as well. So as a bank, obviously, we're super, super serious about it. But as part of the process, we have to always think like, oh, if we're collecting customers' data, go through a process of like, why are we collecting it, and justify it and document it all in the sense, in case we get audited. But one of the key things about that is actually, I think that overall that makes the whole process easier. Because I'll tell you why. One of the things about GDPR and PECA, the way they interact with each other, creates like, I wouldn't say confusion, but it manifests in discussions as grey areas, which means that people don't really understand the legislation. But actually what happens is, in the financial world, we've got a data protection office, we ask what we're going to do, we go to them, we present it to them, and they say, oh, you can do that, you can do this legal basis. Then you almost get like a document that says this is okay, it's been signed off. And why that's really powerful, because if you don't have a DPO or some centralised process, kind of it's almost individual people within the business that can be random, can interpret the legislation how they want and kind of become, not blockers, but they raise concerns. You keep having the same conversation over and over again. But having this process in place, you go, oh look, it's all been checked, it's all fine, it's all been considered. And I find, like, even though it's more work in the long run, that in the beginning, it really kind of helps.
Nice.
So I think the rules and regulations are a good thing overall.
Keep it there. I guess a bit of peace of mind when you know that you've kind of said what you're going to do and you've kind of got it documented, and you can kind of go into that knowing that you've kind of got that checked off.
Yeah.
No, nice. Is there, it's kind of good to kind of hear. I know there's a lot of financial services clients that kind of deal with coming up against that regulation or the personal data. So, no, it's super helpful to hear your perspective. Shifting over, Paolo, at Versace, you are working kind of at that intersection of SEO and conversion optimization. So, typically two areas that, you know, potentially live in very separate teams or kind of separate worlds. How do you bring together into kind of a single view customer journey?
Okay, it's a disclaimer. To me, it's a little bit easier because when I have to, let's say, to start a dialogue between SEO and conversion optimization, I just start to speak to myself. But part of this, the starting point in our team was to stop considering these two disciplines as different things. Because if we think about it, they have many things in common. First of all, their scope. They share the scope to optimize something. And basically, they are telling you the same story, just from different angles. Because SEO is how they find you. And conversion optimization, what happens next. You know? And if those two are out of sync, you are either sending a good amount of qualified traffic to a page that doesn't convert, or you are optimizing a page that doesn't receive so many traffic. And in Versace, we built a unified view of our organic customer journey, in which we analyze our, let's say, traffic, our organic visitors, from the search engine until to the conversion. And with this dashboard, we can understand if and where intent, content, and experience are aligned and where don't. It took some time, but honestly, it's pretty cool.
Amazing. So kind of, really understanding both sides all the way through the journey and kind of keeping that consistent.
Exactly.
And I guess that's probably kind of a key challenge that a lot of people come up against, just in terms of keeping everyone in the same data, making sure that journey is consistent. So no, it's really helpful to kind of hear. And I guess kind of sits with that theme of partnership within data, kind of taking everyone on the journey, telling the story. It's very much kind of the key theme that kind of sits there. I guess shifting over to the key topic of today, which is AI. I know you're all using Sense, and you had some kind of really positive things to say, obviously across Contentsquare, but is AI changing how your teams are interacting with data today? So Phil, I know you kind of touched on that, but within Contentsquare, other systems that you have, or maybe anything that you see coming, kind of how is it that AI is kind of helping team members interact with data?
So it's super exciting. So I can see it's like a ChatGPT window. You do the query, you prompt, you pull the data, and I think the next stage is letting the prompters actually access that data, whether it's like Contentsquare and Contentsquare, what have you, do the graphs, do the visual, and really interrogate it. I do feel quite nervous about that as well. I think there was a Reddit post a few months ago where, I don't know if it was real or not, that it was someone had done an AI thing, and after 3 months they discovered it was making up data, but everyone had started using it. So there is that kind of like worry there. But I can kind of, especially with Sense and building dashboards, I think particularly around like the segments and stuff, it's kind of, ask this segment, and it just builds it all for you, and it starts as a template that the end user, if they get stuck, will come to you and help. Well, at the minute, building dashboards just takes such a huge amount of time, and checking them and cross-referencing them. So I think it's like, it's going to be good, hopefully. It solves the problem.
It is, it's exciting.
Yeah, totally agree. Like to everything you just said, I think we're seeing, although it's early days with Sense, I think it's great. Like, we're seeing adoption across teams, which is amazing because, as I said before, that data democratization is great in theory, but then who's training people to use the tools?
Yep.
How are you interpreting the narrative? Sometimes we're biased to what we're seeing in data. So to equip the teams with something that really allows them to hit the ground running and quickly jump into the data and have access to it in a way that they can understand and translate into a narrative is amazing. And a load of our teams are doing it now and using Sense, which is so good.
I think my favourite feature is the session, like the session ones where you can get a segment of sessions and then ask it to tell you about them. Whereas before, it was just like torture.
Yeah. Every single replay.
Yeah, every single we have to sit through every one. It's like, no, that's not done the thing, that's not the problem, and it would just the whole day doing.
Yeah.
But now it's like, boom, this. That's been a real game changer. And one of the big surprising things, organisations, one of the big adopters of it is the devs for debugging. They love it. They're like, oh, this user's complained about this thing. Go in and see it and watch the video and. It's a bit of a surprise. Yeah, they were like, oh, it's really good because someone complains about something, but it only appears under a niche set of circumstances. But the devs were like, oh, I can actually see what the problem is now. So, like, the devs love it.
No, it is good. It's like that secret insight, isn't it?
Yeah.
Session replays, and yeah, summarising it is key.
Yeah, but I see the same situation because in our team, Sense is, let's say, doing something interesting because it's democratizing the access to insight. You know? And with Sense, and generally speaking with AI, you can skip an entire phase, that's the analysis.
Yeah.
But you can skip the analysis phase, but you can't skip the thinking phase. No?
Yep.
So the thinking step. And so let's say an analyst mindset is still required to understand if you ask a question in the right way, and if the insights it makes sense. And sometimes we have some issue with let's say the thinking phase.
Yeah, it's definitely about questioning the data, isn't it, and keeping that analyst mindset.
So that's what worries me a bit with the whole analysing process. You become reliable on the AI, you're like asking it stuff, and then like after the I'm like, wait, what am I doing? I have to take a step back and kind of like look through what it's said and stuff. But that's what I do worry, that it's taking that like brain power away. So kind of think about flex those muscles a bit still.
Definitely, it's definitely interrogating the responses, isn't it? It's not just taking what's there and kind of governing it and making sure that the data is there, which I think is common across all AI, isn't it? It's not taking it, but it does help. I can say from my perspective as a CSM, it's really helpful in terms of enablement, particularly people that might be coming back to the platform or new starters to kind of help signpost and direct around the platform.
I do think with AI as well, one of the other things is I find it quite exhausting to use. But I think that's because it allows you to do so much more stuff. Like there's a lot of like desk of drawer projects that I've done that I have thought about for years. Oh, I'll just whip it out and do it. But you're doing so much more stuff. It's actually quite exhausting to actually have the mental load to do it all. Yeah.
It's adding to the to-do list.
Yeah.
But hopefully all positive. I mean, yeah, getting through those projects that always sit on the back burner is always helpful. Well, I guess finally, wanted to kind of go a little bit broader and I guess talk about your biggest learning about some of your customers and how that's kind of generally surprised you. So yeah, over to you guys, whoever wants to kick that one off, but just understanding kind of what those surprises are.
Do you want to go?
Okay, I'll go first. It's a tiny thing maybe, but I'm always surprised on how fast they scroll.
Yes.
It's insane.
It's because of TikTok.
Yeah, something like that, because I'm a big fan of session recordings.
Yep.
I could watch them for hours, honestly. And it's really impressive. And even because, we invest so much money in content production, and most of the time they are flying up super fast. And I would ask, the Contentsquare team to provide a new matrix called the scroll velocity, because I think that we, as a user, are scrolling faster than a Ferrari.
Yeah.
It's incredible, especially on the PLPs.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Yes.
You get on the roadmap for us, can you?
Yes, well hopefully if there's someone from the product team in the audience noting this down.
I think with luxury, it's been a learning curve for me because I've always been more commercial side and so have had less red tape around things. But I think sometimes, and maybe this is an obvious one, we can assume that adding more storytelling blocks or content or, all of that, I won't call it fluff, can sometimes adds value, and it definitely does. But I think the biggest surprise is it's the basics that actually drives the most impact. So reminding the user that they get free returns or they will receive the item in time for a certain event. And we A/B tested this, and by changing up the hierarchy of the content on the page, we saw an improvement. And so sometimes, although it may not be surprising in a big way, sometimes just boiling it back down to basics makes the difference.
I found that like the boring things are the things that have the biggest impact. It's like checkout. It's like I've been in loads of organisations and no one wants to look at the checkout page, but that's the page where they're giving you your money, because it's not seen as like simple changes like that. Yeah. What was I going to say? Yeah. So probably a bit more less boring than your two, but I think in finance or in general, I'll put this politely, there's a bit of a preconception that the older you are, the less digitally enabled you are. Or speaking as I think I'm technically a geriatric millennial. I think that's like my terminology. But actually, when we look at our customer base from different ages, actually it's pretty uniform. Like they all log in, they all check their balance, and I think like particularly financial product like savings. These online platforms have been around for 20 years. I remember using them at university. And also the iPhone's been around for 20 years, so there's a bit of an assumption that, I think people just maybe imagine people are sat at home with a BT landline ringing up to check their balance, like it's not the case. Like we see the older people using this technology more, just as much as everybody else.
Yeah, no, it is an interesting one, thinking that, it's just a younger generation kind of part of it, but it's definitely open to everyone in terms of apps and kind of online. Well, thank you very much. We really appreciate that conversation and lots of learnings there and lots of kind of speaking through. So, I will hand us back over to Hugo, but thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.